The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. To echo the words of my colleagues, ranking members, Nita Lowy and Ed Pastor, my good friend, the allocation provided for T-HUD appropriations under the Ryan budget, which was, quote, deemed passed, unquote, by my Republican colleagues, is simply unworkable. From funding for the Federal Aviation Administration Tiger grants, public transit programs, Amtrak, high-speed rail, community development block grants, and the Home Affordable Housing Program, House Republicans are offering a bill that not only makes devastating cuts to our nation's transportation infrastructure, but vital programs in housing, health care, education, labor, and other services that millions of Americans rely on in order to spare defense spending from sequestration. In particular, this bill makes detrimental cuts to aviation programs and investments in our national air system. It cuts FAA operations by $185 million below the President's budget request. It slashes $575 million, 21%, from the FAA's facilities and equipment account and casts doubt on the future hiring of air traffic controllers and inspectors. NextGen is a full multi-year effort to modernize our nation's air traffic control system by transitioning from a ground-based navigation system to a satellite-based navigation system. As it is implemented, NextGen will help reduce delays, expand air traffic system capacity, and mitigate aviation's impact on the environment while ensuring the highest levels of safety. Currently, the FAA is moving from NextGen program development into baseline and operational programs, and passengers and operators are beginning to experience the benefits of these investments. However, while the bill preserves funding for the NextGen programs currently under deployment, it forces the FAA to greatly slow down its NextGen modernization of the air traffic control system. My amendment restores funding for NextGen programs to the fiscal year 2013 level within the operations planning account. It really does represent a small amount, approximately $3.5 million over the FY 2014 House funding level of $56.6 million for a total of $60.1 million. The increased funding would help ensure that FAA remains on schedule with regard to NextGen implementation, while giving it the flexibility to decide how best to move forward in this challenging budget environment. I do recognize that the chairman and ranking member were given a difficult task, and I respect that. But we cannot fail to recognize the future of our NextGen implementation. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment and yield back the balance of my time. Mr. Speaker, I do wish to point out that the bill before us today makes deep cuts to FAA facilities and equipment. Make no mistake, these reductions will directly impact and delay the implementation of NextGen. I've spoken to this issue. This particular amendment makes available approximately $870 million for NextGen capital programs, which is the FY 2013 enacted level. This increased funding would help ensure that the FAA remains on schedule with regard to NextGen implementation. And let me make it very clear, I fought very hard along with my colleagues, both current and former, Republican and Democrat, to bring the NextGen facilities to the West Palm Beach Airport. We were very successful in that regard, but I'm troubled that we might not get to full implementation if we continue the reductions that I see that are set forth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be unrelenting in this effort to try and make sure that we deal with the necessary funds
Does the gentleman
for
from
next
Florida
year.
have an amendment at the
I
desk?
do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and my apologies for getting ahead of the necessary protocol. You know, in Switzerland yesterday, there was a collision of trains, one moving north and the other moving south. A good friend of Mr. Wolf's and Mr. Pastor and mine served as chairman and ranking member of the Transportation Appropriations Committee, James Overstar. And in addition to many things that Jim suggested during his tenure here, and I think back to some of the things that would have put us in a better position than we are today, particularly on overall infrastructure, roads, and rail. I can't understand, and I was saying to the young staffer working with me, what it is that causes the rail industry, both abroad and here, to not have the necessary equipment that would allow one train on the same track to let the other train coming from the opposite direction and vice versa know that they're both on the same track. There just seems to be something wrong with that when we have the kind of sophisticated equipment that we do. Next Gen, in the air area of the world, allows for us to avoid those kinds of problems and to increase the efficiency and safety. It reduces ultimately delays and saves fuel, and particularly if we get on with what I'm asking for, and that's $62 million for next-gen research and development activities from the FAA's Research, Engineering, and Development account. Again, I'm not asking anything that I think would do anything less than help all of us. We don't just live in these places, we fly there. Our aviation industry contributes nearly $1.3 trillion to the United States economy. Furthermore, the FAA's air traffic controllers manage nearly 70,000 flights per day, which on an annual basis carry more than 730 million passengers. With such a vital role in our economy, now is not the time to underfund our nation's air traffic control system. I urge my colleagues to make real investment in our nation's transportation infrastructure by supporting this next-gen amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.